We just saw this past week Liam Coen's about face and signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So how did this order of events come to pass, JJ?
Yeah, Kyle, about face. I love when you can use that phrase. We don't get to use about face as much as we probably should. So that was a perfect spot to use that, because that's exactly what happened.
Shout out to my producers.
Okay. Let's go back.
Shout out to my producers, JJ.
There you go. Hey, like, you get one hosting gig and you start just distributing all of the appreciation. No, you have to take it all right? You have to take every bit of credit, Kyle. That is the number one part about hosting.
All right.
Okay, so about the Liam Coen about face. Go back to last week. He had already had a virtual interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He goes back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They hammer out a deal that is going to make him among the highest paid offensive coordinators in the NFL, somewhere between $4.5, $5 million per year. Then, upon learning about that, the Jaguars and Shad Khan said, "Oh, okay, well, we really, really want this guy." I was told Shad Khan, and Trent Baalke, for that matter, the general manager, that they were enamored with Liam Coen. But then Shad Khan says, "You know what, I'm going to fire Trent, because clearly I have gotten word around the NFL I'm not going to be able to land the top guy as long as I have Trent Baalke here." He fires Trent, and then not only was that done, but he also upped the offer to Liam Coen. I was told somewhere in the Aaron Glenn / Ben Johnson neighborhood of offers, so you can probably believe that's around $10 million per year in salary. And then Liam Coen said, "Okay, I'll listen to you again." And so he goes to Jacksonville. Jacksonville, during this time, is conducting an interview with Patrick Graham, the Raiders defensive coordinator. And they have to conduct that interview to satisfy the Rooney Rule for the NFL to allow them to go ahead and hire Liam Coen. Obviously, that is not the best look. I've written plenty about it, talked plenty about it. Folks around the league don't like it. I think Liam Coen ultimately today knows that this was not the best way to ultimately handle things. But the end result was always going to be he wanted to be a head coach. He wanted to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He didn't do anything that was against any NFL rules. Could things have been handled differently? There is no question at all about it. But we are in a cycle, Kyle, where after 24, 48 hours, something else happens. You and I are both going to be like, "Oh, look, squirrel." And then we're going to forget all about this whole Liam Coen saga.
Yeah, you know what? This whole thing, the coaching carousel, in particular, this Jacksonville and Tampa Bay situation, is very Game of Thronesy to me. It's like you leave in a wagon covered by darkness, and you end up in somebody else's castle with a higher position. That kind of feels like the deal here. Who do you think is more to blame for this whole confusion? Do you think it's Liam Coen and his group? Is it Shad Khan and the Jacksonville Jaguars? And what does that tell you about this entire situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this, it probably lands more on Liam Coen and his group because, okay, so there was word that Tampa was going to give him this contract, but it was contingent upon him not taking a second interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if that's true or not. The point is it would not be enforceable. You can't do that. That actually is against NFL rules. So that's just a handshake. That's a verbal agreement. Whether Liam Coen agreed to that and then backed out of that, that's him putting his word out there. It's also very clear, and I'm not going to get into what was texted between Liam Coen and Todd Bowles, what may have been going on in Liam Coen's personal life on that same day, simultaneous to his interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But it is clear, it is a fact, based upon several sources I've spoken to, that he did not make clear to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that he was in Jacksonville interviewing in person with the Jaguars while the Bucs were prepared to make him one of the highest paid at his position in the history of the NFL. I think a lot of reasonable people would agree that, hey, you just got to sit there and you got to say, hey, I am very interested in hearing them out. I wasn't 2 days ago. I am now. I'm going to go talk to them, and that's just what it's going to be. He probably should have done that. He did not do that. And that's something that he's going to have to wear, during this press conference for the first couple weeks. He and Todd Bowles may not exchange Christmas cards later on. The Bucs are absolutely going to block assistant coaches from joining Liam Coen and his staff. They can't block a promotion to offensive coordinator, but they can block, oh, here's our quarterbacks coach. he's now interviewing for quarterbacks coach of the Jaguars. They can block that. I think that they will if that were to be the case. So, this is on Liam. But again, it is not, he didn't commit the crime of the century. Right. I mean, I think there was some hyperbole. It was probably a little unethical. He should have kept his word. He didn't. He should have probably just handled it better. And again, it's going to be over soon.
You want to talk about crime of the century? You want to talk about blocking options? Well, how about a guy who is absolutely unblocked in the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, newly minted, Brian Schottenheimer? And we've got some sound here I want you to take a listen to from Jerry Jones. Listen to it and we'll talk after.
Now, I get my proverbial kick over needing people in my comfort zone. Without this thing being about me in any way, if you don't think I can't operate out of my comfort zone, you're so wrong. It's unbelievable. This is as big a risk as you could take. As big a risk as you could take. No head coaching experience.
You know what, JJ, to me, it doesn't seem like too much of a risk because the guy's been in the building. He's been with these players. I heard Brian Schottenheimer name about 15 nicknames during his press conference of guys in the back of that meeting room. Tell me what you thought of Brian Schottenheimer's introductory press conference, and what do you think about the hire overall, JJ?
Well, we'll talk about the press conference first. Brian Schottenheimer, I thought, did a very good job in his introductory comments. I thought that they might pass it over to Jerry before, and then they said, no, we're going to take questions now. Calvin Watkins, a longtime beat writer there, he then asked Jerry, why Brian? I mean, as simple a question as you could really ask, right? But it is the top question that anyone should ask. And then, boy, that's when Jerry let the chopper sing. I mean, he just went on, and it was somewhat rambling. Sometimes it was, are we going to put a period here? Is this a comma? Is this a semicolon? An M dash? I mean, it just kind of kept going on. And Jerry really wanted to make the point. And I think if I can condense this enough, he was trying to make the point that he knows what makes a great head coach. He's owned the Cowboys for 35 years. Coaches come up to him all the time, wanting a job, wanting to be interviewed by him. How many interviews has he conducted? If anybody knows on this earth what it takes to hire a great head coach, it's Jerry Jones. I would say, and far be it from me to criticize Jerry Jones, I have never hired a football coach. I think philosophically, and when you look at the data, there's no right or wrong way to go about hiring a coach. We just talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars and is this going to work where Liam Coen was hired and now they're going to hire a head coach or a general manager? Should you do it in parallel, in concert with one another? Should you go GM first and head coach? And then, Kyle, is it, do you want the leader of men coach, or do you want the offensive play caller coach? Do you want the coach who's going to take the ping pong table out of the locker room and, hey, this is all about football? Or do you want the coach who's going to say, nah, guys, you absolutely get your pool table and you get to, hang out and your locker room is yours? There's so many different ways to skin the cat on what makes a good process or a good head coach or good GM and all those things. But I don't think that Jerry Jones can he is confidently saying it. I don't know that it's going to bear out as true what he is confidently saying, that he does know that this is going to be a great head coach hire. He's saying it's a risk. It's a risk insofar as a lot of folks wouldn't give the guy who has been an assistant for the last 20-some years to the keys to the Dallas Cowboys franchise. Maybe they would have run a more robust search, perhaps. Jerry's going to do what Jerry's wanting to do. I mean, and that's the beginning and end of it. Everybody at the league office certainly knows that. So I don't know if this is the right hire. I don't think anybody knows if it's the right hire. You can't. But Jerry's saying that he knows. I don't think that's true.
One thing I will say, my 2 cents, as it were, about the Schottenheimer hire and his comments, I really appreciated what he had to say about his late father, who obviously legendary coach in the National Football League for a long time. And the one nugget that stood out to me, you can outwork your opponents. You can outwork the world. So let's hope the Dallas Cowboys find a way to put their best foot forward. Well, another team looking to put their best foot forward, the Las Vegas Raiders, obviously led by one of the new owners, Tom Brady. They went and they got Pete Carroll, the old gum chewer from Seattle and USC Trojan lore. What did you think about the hire for Pete Carroll? personally, I think it's a good move for the Raiders.
Yeah, I really like it. When the Raiders, they were all in on Ben Johnson. Tom Brady was all in on Ben Johnson. I don't know that Ben Johnson was all in on the Raiders. We never reported that necessarily. Takes two to tango, as you know. And so Tom Brady was very interested in Ben. He obviously chose your Chicago Bears, Kyle. At that point, the Seahawks pivoted. And and they decided, we need a culture changer. We need a guy who's going to come in here and is going to shake some things up. That it didn't work with Antonio Pierce. I heard from someone a couple of weeks ago, this is why you don't let the players pick the head coach. It clearly did not work out. Pete Carroll, one of few people who have ever walked this earth, who will now be a head coach of 4 different NFL franchises. Kyle, more people have walked on the moon than led 4 different NFL franchises. Pete Carroll is now among them. I think that there's going to have to be a succession plan. He's 73 years old. He'll be 74 this upcoming season. I think Pete knows that. He is the youngest 73-year-old that you'll ever probably meet in football. And you absolutely love the energy, but there's going to have to be, because he only signed a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th year. So you're going to have to see that succession plan kind of kick in year 2, probably. It's going to be very interesting to see who he hires as his offensive coordinator. Is it going to be Darrell Bevell, with whom he has some experience? If he can get a Russell Wilson in at quarterback, that pairing, that marriage makes a little bit of sense. I've reported David Shaw, the former Stanford head coach, let's bring back the old Pac-10, baby, that he may be the offensive coordinator for Pete Carroll. Right now, he already interviewed with the Bears for their OC job. He's with the Denver Broncos right now. That is something that I could see. It's going to be very interesting to watch this Raiders staff take shape, not only for right now and how they can go out there and win and beat probably the best division in football when it comes to coaches and quarterbacks, right? Because you got first ballot Hall of Famer Andy Reid, you got Sean Payton, Super Bowl winner, you got Jim Harbaugh, you got Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Bo Nix. Like, you had to go out and get a heavy hitter, right? And that's what they did in getting Pete Carroll. Now it's about getting his staff for right now, but also what that staff looks like in 2026, 2027, when the Raiders inevitably have to turn the page.